There's a roll. It's a lot easier at 3Gs. Welcome to space, everyone.
Yeah.
Good to be back. I don't remember liftoff being quite that violent. I do.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us here at Launchpad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center for this media question and answer session with the 4 astronauts of Space Shuttle Atlantis' STS-135 mission to the International Space Station. And as you may know, and judging by the turnout this morning, you do know this will be the final flight for the Space Shuttle program. The STS-135 crew is here for training related to the Terminal Countdown Demonstration Test, or TCDT. I'm now going to turn this over to the commander for the STS-135 mission, Chris Ferguson, and then we'll open it up to questions. Commander?
Thanks, Allard. Well, good morning again, everyone. We've been together, it seems like, long enough. I'm beginning to see a lot of familiar faces out there. Thanks for coming out and greeting the crew for what, as Allard said, is the final opportunity to do this, at least in front of a space shuttle. And I couldn't think of a better backdrop. It's an incredible vehicle. It's beautiful. For those of you who have ever had the opportunity to just stand underneath it and look up, I've always said that the magic of the space shuttle is just its magnitude. It's an immense vehicle, and it's gorgeous, and fortunately we're all going to get together and watch it launch one more time. We'll just pass the microphone down for quick introductions, and then we'll open up the field for questions. To my right is the pilot, Doug Hurley, Marine Corps Colonel, graduate of Tulane University. This will be Doug's second space flight.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. We just always enjoy getting down to Kennedy Space Center, seeing the hardware, and we're really looking forward to tomorrow to simulate the countdown. To my right is Mission Specialist 1, Sandy Magnus. She's a PhD. She's our load master on the flight, and she's flown on STS-112 and then had a nice 4.5-month expedition to the space station.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Florida. Hopefully we'll have some lovely weather today, a little bit better than yesterday. I know you guys really we're troopers out there in the weeds with the mosquitoes and everything. Today we have a breeze. It's really nice. I'd like to introduce to my right Mission Specialist 2, Rex Walheim, retired Air Force Colonel, graduate of University of California, Berkeley, and he's our EVA specialist on the flight and assistant load master. So he and I are going to be busy in the MPLM during the whole mission.
Thanks, Sandy. It is a pleasure to be here, and especially right in front of the Space Shuttle. Just gives you goosebumps thinking that we're going to get to ride that in about 2 weeks. And since nobody ever introduces Fergie, Chris Ferguson is our commander from Drexel University, a veteran of 2 space flights, 126 and 115, is that correct? And he keeps us all in line, so that's his job. So with that, I'll hand it back to Fergie.
Well, again, thank you, everyone. I think we have a few questions, at least I hope we do, and we can go ahead and get started.
Hi, Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for you, Commander. You will go down, history will remember you as the commander of the last shuttle flight, and I know you're busy, but when you pause to reflect on that personally, can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure, Marcia. And what I've said all along is that we've got a complex mission. We've had a very short training flow, about 9 months, and 4 people. The number of tasks aboard the shuttle haven't changed just because there's 4 people. So I think what I'm driving at is we've been enormously busy, and although we've tried to pause and think of good ways to reflect and remember those moments, I don't think that the full magnitude of the moment will really hit us until the wheels have stopped on the runway. I'm not sure words will really be able to capture for the crew and for the entire shuttle workforce just how much the shuttle program has meant to us for the last 30 years. We're certainly going to try to capture that. And over the course of the mission, we'll also try to appropriately recognize those folks who have really turned to us. There's at least a couple generations of careers potentially in the space shuttle. It's a long list of people to remember, and I'm sure a lot of people will be watching. And like I had said in our introductory remarks when we showed up at the SLF a couple days ago, we all want to be able to remember this, and we want to be able to pass to our children, our children's children, that we were fortunate enough to be a part of the space shuttle. So, I don't consider it a personal thing with regard to the crew. I consider us all one family, and being able to go through this together, and like I had said, being able to savor the moment just one more time.
Hi, Irene Klotz with Reuters. I was just curious for anybody who wants to answer how your emergency egress training is different with no one seated on the middeck for this flight.
I guess I'll answer that since that's my job to jump down from the top deck to the lower deck to take care of stuff if we have an emergency situation we had to bail out. So it's really, the steps are pretty similar. Just we have a few things we've taken into consideration. If we needed to blow the hatch on the outside, I would go downstairs, and before I did that, Sandy would pop a circuit breaker so that the audio would go downstairs so I could hear it. Normally, when I unplug from my seat upstairs, I would put my visor down and go on internal oxygen, and then climb down there. But this case, I need to be able to hear and stuff, so that's going to be a little different. So I'll keep off oxygen, and then before I vent the hatch, I'll make sure everybody's on visors and O2, and we would vent the hatch. And if we had to parachute out, we could all cycle down through there. So we can do it, just have little things a little bit out of order, but we've managed to come up with a sequence that works pretty well for us.
Thanks.
Bill Harwood, CBS News. I guess a question for the commander. When you look back on everything from the Columbia Accident Commission to this day, and the decisions that got made that are making this the final flight of the shuttle, what are the top 2 or 3 things do you think are what led to this day that made the government decide that they didn't want to fly this vehicle any longer and needed to do something else? What got you to this point? I mean, I know you could talk all day, but generally, your thoughts about that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a real good question. I have to go back about 8 years because the crew office had we had a say. Obviously, it was our friends that were lost aboard Columbia, so it was kind of an emotional time for everybody as we decided, well, what do we think about the space shuttle? What has it meant to us so far? How much further should we go with it? I mean, we knew that its safety record, I don't think, was what anyone had necessarily hoped for back when we advertised that the space shuttle would fly 40 or 50 times per year. And I think we settled on the right answer. The right answer was, hey, perhaps we need something that has an order of magnitude more survivability for the crew on board. And perhaps the only way to do that is to go with an escape system. Which is the way we ultimately gravitated towards. Of course, Constellation Orion, before it was canceled, had a world-class escape system that would perhaps increase the survivability of the crew up to 1 in 1,000. So, we'd love to fly the shuttle 10 more years. I don't think there's anybody here at KSC, JSC, or within the NASA, or perhaps even in the country, who wouldn't like to see the shuttle continue a little bit. But, and I'm going to quote Bob Cabana a little bit yesterday. He was talking to the managers that it's the combination of what we experienced with Columbia, perhaps the safety record that is not as great as we would like it to be in the space shuttle, and the fact that we're going to have to stand down for a little while in order to put forth the limited budget that we have to invest in the next generation of space vehicle. So, it's something I think its time has come. I hate to see the space shuttle go away. I really do. But I think that there are some events historically that have led to this, and it's probably appropriate. And it's not a surprise, and I've advertised that all along, although we're a little disappointed we don't have something to fall right on the tail of the space shuttle. We've known that the last flight is going to fall in the vicinity of 2010, 2011, back when then President Bush made his announcement that he had a new vision for space exploration. So this has been part of the plan all along. Sure, Bill. Thank you.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. For anyone who wants to answer, you're all veteran astronauts. You've all been inside the space shuttle before, and you've trained recently in vertical simulators at Johnson Space Center. So what exactly does this TCDT experience give you and in terms of preparing for this last launch?
I think the biggest thing is you're working with the whole team down here and actually going through a launch count right up until T0. You're working, you've got your suits, you've got your suit techs, you're doing all the motions that you go through on launch day all the way out to the pad, and that's obviously for tomorrow. And then all the other things we do, we reviewed obviously the M113 driving yesterday. We get some bunker training today, some fire training up on the pad. So it's just a very comprehensive, hands-on, at the place you're going to do it kind of training, and it's invaluable. I mean, you can do all the simulators in the world, but until you get in that real vehicle, touch the vehicle, see what you can reach, see the different switches, everything's just a little bit different when you're in the real vehicle. So it's a great way to get you ready for the launch day when it counts.
Hi, Ken Kramer from Spaceflight Magazine and the Rittenhouse Astronomical Society, your hometown, Commander Ferguson. I wonder if you have some words for your folks in your hometown and for the children of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Well, Ken, we were talking yesterday about the experiences I had there at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia as a grade schooler and a high schooler, and how I developed and cultivated a love of science, interest, space, engineering in many trips to the Franklin Institute. Of course, I miss my hometown. I have a lot of family and relatives there who I think are who are cheering the whole crew on. And of course, my hometown Phillies. Love them too. So it's a big shout out to the friends in Philadelphia. Thanks, Ken.
Hello, Ghosh, BBC News. Chris, how do you actually feel about being on the last ever launch? Happy, sad, a bit of both?
Happy, sad, a bit of both. What would you say? I think that's a real good answer. Yes. That's a very good answer. I think I speak for the whole crew. We're very honored to be in this position. There's many people who could be here. We just happened to, when the dice fell, we were, our names were facing up. So we consider ourselves fortunate, lucky. I think, and we haven't talked about this, I think each of us feels a little perhaps extra burden to make sure that we put on the best possible face forward for the last go around of this. And the crew's very prepared. We're going to go out and do a fantastic job. And like I said, when it's all over at the very end, I think that's when it's good. The enormity of it is going to hit us. That last wheel stop call is going to be a little tough. And I'm sure, you want to appreciate the moment. You want to capture it for as many folks who are listening as there will be, I'm sure. And you want to enjoy it with them. And like I said a couple days ago, you want to savor the moment with them.
Thank you, and good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Jackie Goddard for the Times of London. We're standing in a spot where history's been made for 50 years, and I just wondered, Rex, whether you could kind of encapsulate some of the excitement of being at such a historic spot, and really what the children of today should take away from the space program now that maybe you took away as a kid from witnessing what went before.
Yeah, and a lot of the history of this pad did start out when I was a kid. I mean, I was a kid in Michigan when Apollo 11 went to the moon. And I remember my parents waking me up that night and bringing us down, even though we were sleepy, and watching, hey, look, somebody's sitting on the moon for the very first time. And to look up the moon and just think how incredible that was. And that kind of follows you when you become an astronaut. You realize that the people that went before you and how inspiring that is. Everything from the suit-up room. We suit up in the same room that the Apollo 11 astronauts suited up before they went to the moon. And the same room that our friends that have gone before us. And I often do think that we're launched from the exact same launch pad that Apollo 11 launched at to go from the moon. It's just, it gives you goosebumps. It doesn't get old. It's amazing the history that's here at the Kennedy Space Center. So we're proud to be part of the shuttle history, and we're really looking forward to seeing what comes next, because the Kennedy Space Center is the premier spaceport, and this is where history is going to happen in the space business.
Hello, this is Naomi with NHK SHV, the last Space Shuttle project. I think some of them have already kind of asked similar questions, but I'd like to have a comment from each one of you. Personally, how do you feel about flying the very last Space Shuttle to the ISS? And how do you feel about all the other long list of crews supporting this 30 years of Space Shuttle program?
Well, I think we've mentioned before, we feel very honored to be on this flight, and we've been very focused to make sure that we perform it well in honor of all of the people who have been involved in not just this mission, but all the missions. We're just the tip of the iceberg of a huge group of people who plan and get the hardware ready and prepare our procedures and then watch over the vehicle while we're on board. And we feel very, very strongly that we have to be prepared as possible to perform the mission to the extent that they're expecting of us. And I think when it's all done, we can all celebrate together, not only just the mission, but the whole program. No, actually, we don't have time.
Randy Siegel, WSTU Radio. Sandy, for you, it's a homecoming. You're going back home to the ISS. You know how crowded it is. You're the load master. Are you bringing anything special with you back to the station? And are you going to be able to savor any moments while you're up there?
Well, certainly we have a challenging timeline, and I think we'll still find some time to savor the moments. And I do feel a little bit like it's a homecoming, but the home has grown in the last 2 years since I've been there, and we're all looking forward to seeing the cupola. We've heard some great comments from our colleagues about how beautiful that view is, because you get the panoramic of the Earth, and I think we'll be spending some time in there. And we're hoping to leave the station as nice as we arrived with it. We'll leave it hopefully as clean as we arrived with it, even though we are dumping lots of stuff on there. Hopefully we'll be able to do it in a nice and tidy way so we won't mess up their home. It'll be really neat to see it again.
Mark Ratterman from Talking Space. A question for whoever can see into the future. Do you foresee someday when we'll have ticker tape parades for astronauts that fly and come home and celebrate some extraordinary mission?
You know, honestly, it's not about us. It's about the folks that get these vehicles into orbit and support the vehicle. You know, it's really enough for us just to get that look outside the window once. It's all worth it. But, you know, we ought to be celebrating the folks that have worked an entire career to make these vehicles go into space safely and bring us home safely. So I don't know. You know, there probably will be ticker tape parades someday, you know, for some folks that, you know, go beyond low Earth orbit to an asteroid or to Mars or wherever we decide the destination is. But, you know, I think it should be for all the folks that help us get there.
Hi, Takuya Kazuma from Japan's Nippon Television. Here's a question for Commander. When you arrive at the ISS this time, the robonauts who will have been working as your crew member already. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between what robots should and can do and what only human can do, and also the significance of having robots in the future space exploration?
Absolutely. I would never claim to be an expert on Robonaut, but I will tell you that we are taking up a payload. It's called the Robotics Refueling Module. And this is to demonstrate a capability for the Special Purpose Dexterous Manipulator, which hasn't seen a whole lot of use on the International Space Station to date, but we hope to turn that all around with this payload. I've kind of likened it to a Fisher-Price play toy for a robot. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. It is really, it's an opportunity for the Special Purpose Dexterous Manipulator, the SPDM, to get in there and use several different tools and prove the capability to do something extremely novel, and that is to refuel satellites on orbit that were never designed to be refueled. So the manipulator will actually go in and pick up special cutter tools and to cut safety wire. It has a drill that can actually drill into a fuel tank. So there's some very unique capabilities that will be demonstrated using this. And I think just to tag on to what I think your point was, well, what capability will robots provide to us in the future? You know, to think about going out there and perhaps grappling a satellite that was never designed to be refueled because the capability to refuel it didn't exist before it launched, and refill it and use it for an additional 5 or 10 years, I think is just a dramatic example of just how robotics can modify at least what we're doing in space, and not the least of which, of course, that's the only one of several robotic arms. I believe the tally is up to something like 4 that we have on the external the external side of the International Space Station right now that do any one of a number of things. It'll actually load and unload the MPLM from the back of the payload bay. So robotics, very clean and clear future in space operations as far as I'm concerned.
Hi, Clara Moskowitz with Space.com, and a question for any one of you who'd like to answer. With the shuttle retiring, what would you tell children who dream of becoming an astronaut or who've dreamed of flying on the space shuttle about the opportunities that they still have to go to space?
Well, I think the opportunities are still there. As you know, we're entering what we call the gap period, where there's may not be United States access to low Earth orbit on our own capability. But we'll get back there. There's no question that it may take a few years, but the young kids today, it should be kind of a blink of their eye. You know, 4 or 5 years or however long it takes is going to go by very quickly. So if kids are in school right now, want to be astronauts, there's going to be possibly even more opportunities with the commercialization of access to low Earth orbit, and then that will have a chance to give people a chance to go to the International Space Station. But then beyond low Earth orbit, the more of the exploration, NASA will be full and right in the front of that, and the kids of today will have a chance to train to be astronauts, to go to places like maybe the moon or an asteroid or to Mars. So there's incredible opportunities. So the only thing I can say to the kids is don't take a short-sighted time frame. Look at the long-term time frame, and the future of the American space is pretty bright.
Kevin Oliver with WFTV. I was just curious, we haven't seen a crew this small in years, and with a crew this small and the amount of work that you have, has there ever been any concern about too much work, too little crew, and whether that would affect finishing all your objectives and your safety?
We've had a chance through training to go through all of the various scenarios, contingency deorbits, different kinds of contingency undocking scenarios, and we have actually found procedures that assume you have 5 or 6 or 7 crew members. And so these have been very good exercises for us to go through and figure out, okay, so now we only have 4 people, how are we going to do it? And we've got some really good workarounds in place for how we're going to get through these particular kinds of scenarios. The overall workload is pretty high. We've had to do a lot more cross-training than normal for a shuttle crew. It actually feels a little bit to me like a station mission because you end up being a little bit more of a jack of all trades and not so much just a pipeline specialist. And that's been a lot of fun because we get to dabble in each other's areas. So I think between the cross-training and the fact that we've nosed out these scenarios where we need to be a little bit smarter, we're going to be in pretty good shape. But we are going to be working very hard. But it'll be a lot of fun at the same time and very challenging.
Mark Miller, Discovery Channel. We've been trying to work a piece into our documentary about all of the people behind the scenes. And they gave us a figure of about 15,000 people have got this thing to the pad. Maybe one of you guys can speak to that. They tell me this is the last question, so perhaps it's appropriate that we hear your thoughts on all the folks that don't get to be on TV.
Well, let me just, Mark, tell you, just from a personal perspective, we knew 9 months ago that we were probably going to fly STS 135 as the final flight, and my boss came to me and said, well, how much time do you need to train? How many people do you need to train? What do you need to do to make this all happen? So we tried to project in the future and think, well, there's an interesting twist in that this is the final flight. So we added a little pad here and there. But one thing that I, in hindsight, I don't think accounted for appropriately was the amount of emotion that people have in their general attachment to the vehicle, and the fact that they all want to, when they get an opportunity, they want to talk to the crew about their experience. And it's all enormously positive, very, very positive reflections on the 25 years that they've been a part of the Space Shuttle program, or the 40 years they've been involved with NASA here at the Kennedy Space Center. And it's been a very positive experience for us to hear that. I'd have to say at the end of the day, though, we're like, wow, there's a lot of emotion here. It plays a factor in our training and just how long our days get. But they're all stories that we want to hear. But as you said, there's tens of thousands, perhaps, of people who are involved and get the shuttle to this position right here. And I wish I could give credit to every single one of them, because they certainly deserve it. This is about the largest team effort I can imagine. And what I do know is when it's all said and done, folks watching on TV, folks watching from the causeway, there is not an American who doesn't look upon an ascending shuttle with a certain sense of American pride, hair on the back of your neck, chills, call it what you will. And it's just been great, and I think it will be fantastic until the very end to know that just a little piece of every one of them went along with us for every single ride. And when it's all over, we're going to go back and we're going to do our best to thank each and every one of them for the part that they paid, and just the hopes that they'll kind of hang on there for this gap, because we want their experience, we want their passion, and we want their knowledge when we pick up and do this all over again in a different capacity.
Well, as you said, that's our last question. We'll just take the microphone from you. Good job. We'll just do a quick photo opportunity, and we'll get you back on your way. Thank you.
Houston,
That's beautiful. This has got to be one of the most proud moments of my life, I guarantee you.